I've actually been thinking about this lately. You will often get theists claiming that religion is a net positive for the world, even if there are plenty of negatives. However, I've always disagreed with this sentiment. I don't think there's anything particularly positive about religion in and of itself, and anything good that you can get from religion, you could just as easily get without it. So I went poking around YouTube and I came across this video that purported to give 5 reasons why religion is good for the world. I'm not blaming the video maker for any of this because it's just a general purpose informational video, but I'm going to take these 5 reasons apart and show why none of them are actually any good. While this is true, it doesn't mean that religion is required to make it happen. Now, thinking back to when I was religious many years ago, I will agree that lots of people went to church, not to listen to the pastor, but to stand around out in front drinking coffee and eating donuts and socializing. It's how people made friends. It's how they got jobs. It's how people networked with others in the community. And while it's a great social tool, religion really has no particular part in it. The church just provides a convenient place for people to congregate for this purpose and provides a point of commonality that people can start from. But you can do this anywhere. You don't need religion. There are plenty of secular social organizations out there that you can join if you really need help making friends. There are plenty of places you can go to meet people with similar interests that don't require believing in an imaginary friend in the sky. Well, that makes no sense. Religion is almost a default topic that anyone with the same religion will have? Okay. But as I said, religion isn't something that you have to have in common in order to have something in common. And when you think that not only are there hundreds of different religions, but there are thousands of different denominations within the major religions, the chances of having a significant part of your beliefs in common with another random theist off the street, they're pretty slim, aren't they? So is every other conceivable commonality between human beings. However, you can get that without all the negatives that come along with religion. If I enjoy playing chess, I can join a chess club without having to worry about bowing down to Mecca a couple times a day, and without having to worry that one half of the club might declare a jihad on the other half for some perceived slight. I can get all the upsides and none of the downsides. Why would I ever want to belong to a religion? Not so much. Again, and I'll just use Christianity as a convenient example, there are more than 44,000 distinct sects, all of which hold different views on Christianity and the Bible and morality. It's not like these are minor differences that no one cares about. Wars have been fought over these theological disagreements. People have died because they've held a different view of religion than someone else. I don't even want to get into the abject hatred that different sects of Islam have for each other. That said, vital life lessons for children? You mean indoctrination. Teaching children ridiculous stories out of a book of mythology that are questionable at best and demonstrably factually untrue at worst? How is this a positive? Well, yes and no. I mean, if you think the requirement that women cover up their bodies because Muslim men are unable to control their impulses is modesty, I guess. Now, I'm not going to say that you can't get some useful ideas out of religion. It's just all the crap you have to wade through to get to them that makes the whole process largely pointless. You can be modest without covering yourself in a blanket. You can be compassionate without murdering Muslims like the Buddhists in Myanmar do. You can get a continuing education without having a rabbi suck your male child's dick. None of these require you to have a religion. They just require you to be a decent person. They give you a really bad guideline, if that's what you mean. Religion encourages doing ostensibly good things for really bad reasons. It teaches compassion, but only towards those who share the same views that you do. Otherwise, they're evil sinners that are going to hell, and you just might be encouraged to help them on their way. It teaches honesty, but only because some imaginary friend in the sky is always watching over you, and they're going to get you if you do something wrong. At least unless you rationalize your way into thinking that your God will somehow understand, or that somehow really wants you to do it anyway. Religion teaches people really horrible lessons about how to live. It teaches people to mutilate their genitals, both male and female, and to be horrified by their bodies and impulses. It teaches an in-group, out-group mentality that you're either with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, you're going to an eternity of torment, and we'll all just sit up in the clouds and point and laugh. Won't that be great? It teaches people to follow ancient laws of conduct that simply don't work in the modern world. It teaches people to believe things that appear in ancient books of mythology that are simply not true. The list goes on and on and on of really horrible things that religion teaches that no one in their right minds should ever accept. But they do. No, not so much. This isn't a positive, this is a crutch. You have clergy who often have little to no experience in the subject matter and are providing unlicensed and untrained psychotherapy. I'm not going to trust a priest who can't get married to give me worthwhile relationship advice. And again, this guidance comes through the lens of laughable supernatural beliefs. Don't do this because God won't like it. Strap on a bomb vest because Allah will give you 72 virgins. This is not good advice. No, that's a horrible thing to say. Just because Jeffrey Dahmer tells me I ought to murder and eat people doesn't make it good advice. Just because Adolf Hitler tells me that I ought to hate Jews and stuff them in gas chambers doesn't mean I ought to believe it. Bad advice is still bad advice, and it doesn't become good advice just because it's there. That's because many people have been indoctrinated to think that way. They've been taught by their religions to avoid and ignore the outside world because it's full of sinners. In this, religious dependence is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The religions keep people from consulting qualified, trained, and educated professionals because those professionals are probably not going to give the same answers that the religions want to push. Come to us for the answers because we don't want you going anywhere else that might tell you things that make you doubt us. Well, maybe you should be doubting them. Did you ever stop to think about that? This is a contentious one. Yes, lots of religions do provide charitable work. And you know why? Because they're using their charitable deeds as a cover for their real goal, conversion. They're not helping just to help. Well, except for themselves. They're helping so that they can tell you the supposedly good news. They're helping so that they can convert you to their way of thinking. It really doesn't matter what kind of charitable work they're doing. Soup kitchens that won't give you food unless you say a prayer with them. Homeless shelters that won't give you a bed unless you profess their religion. Heck, Scientology uses their free personality tests as a means to talk to you about Scientology and get you hooked on their expensive classes. It's like a drug dealer. Samples are free, but they try their hardest to hook you. See, if you're going to do charity for the sake of doing charity. Do it with no strings attached. Stop trying to sell your religion. It should never even come up if you're really doing it to be compassionate. But they're not. They're just not. Not so much. Haiti had an earthquake, and religion sends solar-powered Bibles. How extraordinary is that? Well, it's extraordinarily stupid, but, If you look at the big international relief efforts, the push from religion is never, help these people. It's, help spread the word of our God. This is multi-level marketing at its most insidious. The higher-ups are always recruiting people further down the pyramid to go out and keep evangelizing the program so that money and power can flow throughout the system. And of course, religion doesn't provide the majority of charity. Some of the largest charitable organizations in the world are completely secular. Groups like Amnesty International, Doctors Without Borders, Goodwill, and the Red Cross are all non-religious. None of these groups are trying to recruit like religion does. And how much more could be achieved if it was done for the right reasons? How much money is wasted handing out Bibles to people who are starving? How much time is wasted saying prayers to imaginary gods with the needy? When religion tells the poor that God will provide, instead of telling them that their future is in their hands if only they have the will to grasp it, that's not helping anyone. And that's another thing that religion does. It tries to make people dependent on religion. It doesn't try to help the needy get on their own 2 feet and be reliant on themselves. This is another problem of religion. There are so many. No, actually, they're just trading one addiction for another. That's why all the religious 12-step programs start out by telling addicts that they cannot help themselves. They cannot succeed without the constant intervention of their imaginary friend. They don't give addicts the tools to take control of their own lives. In fact, they teach that it simply isn't possible. As with charity, these drug addiction programs are just another means of recruiting the weakest and most vulnerable members of society into the multi-level marketing systems so that they can work for the religious leaders, garnering converts and making money. But that's not a true answer. Reality matters. Just throwing around emotionally comforting but ultimately empty platitudes doesn't actually solve anything. Just because it's an answer that makes you feel good doesn't mean it's an answer worth having. And there are plenty of cases where religion has taken people away from doing great things and turned them into mindless sheep. I mean, you can look at people like Blaise Pascal, who did amazing work before his conversion to Christianity, after which he became little more than an impotent apologist. Or how about Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake by the Catholic Church for daring to question Catholic doctrine? There's a long list of people who have been imprisoned, murdered, or otherwise ruined by religion because they said religion was wrong, and they almost all turned out to have been correct. This is just an example of recording the hits and ignoring the misses. There is no evidence at all that becoming religious actually made these people great. It's just mistaking correlation for causation. Now again, I'm not saying anything bad about the video or the video makers themselves. Its creators say the only reason they did a video on the supposed good things of religion is because they had previously done a video on 5 bad things. But just because there are bad things, that doesn't mean you have to pretend there are good things. Some things are just bad. There's a tagline I've been using for many years that says, there is nothing demonstrably true that religion can provide the world that cannot be achieved more rationally through entirely secular means. I honestly can't think of anything in this list that couldn't be achieved without religion, except maybe the bad parts. We can have charity, we can have networking, we can have good advice that actually works in the real world, we can have education and more. The fact is, there are things that are often touted as positives about religion, such as art and architecture, but we can have those things too without religion. We can have it all, and we can get rid of the lazy thinking, irrational beliefs, and dumbing down that religion provides. We just have to care about the real world and how things actually are. It has to be more important to us than base emotional comfort and wishful thinking. When we can do that, we'll move beyond religion and we'll be a lot better off. Thank you everybody for your time.